My parents gave me a homeland, built a place that I feel attached to as if it were my mother. I wonder how I will do this for my kids, how I will manage to be a writer in the truest sense of the word. Because for whatever reason, the society we live in puts a price on us, on the things we do, and those values don't include making a homeland, caring for babies, growing food. They don't include making pots or weavings or writing. The land of my birth holds me close. My parents moved to rural Arkansas, lived in a tent, built a house, and birthed my brother and I at home, delivering us onto a particularly dark knot on the oak floor. I walk over it every time I return home. And although I didn't know it, there was no money. The land in the Ozark Mountains was what we had, where we roamed.
I didn't want to buy into the system, and what I'm doing now is just after working my whole life and having an opportunity to now kind of finish what I started. Got distracted with raising children because it's hard to make a living, just how many thousands of pots you have to sell every year.
We're at this big meeting, and everybody was milling around talking to each other before the meeting, and I saw this tall, blonde, very handsome man, amazing dark eyebrows, and he had on all Peruvian textiles. Well, we thought everything was falling apart in terms of society. It's a loom. Tailor. I learned to weave in a craft school in the mountains of Tennessee. And so when I got out of college, I didn't know what I was doing. And my parents knew I was interested in weaving, so they said, well, we'll give you this present. We'll send you to learn how to weave. I think I do it for mental health as much as anything else. Because I think without that focus, I'm too unfocused. So I guess weaving gives me a sense of usefulness. Even though I don't sell a lot of my work. I was influenced by growing up in Charleston and the houses there and the pictures I saw of my parents' houses. So this was the drawing for 38 State Street. So this is my Hurricane Sandy house. And this is my big house, little house. And so I wove this little face on that loom. I made this one, which is more like Jay Leno. I grew up in the woods, grew up with copperheads, grew up eating clay out of my dad's studio and peas from the garden. My hands knew the rough edges of ceramic cups, the texture of hand-dyed wool. My parents wanted to make art, to grow their own food, to create a reality outside of the one so clearly defined by society. They said, a house is a vessel, a pot is a vessel, a weaving is a vessel. We will build our own reality.
Building staircases, wiring electricity, tilling the garden, tending the bees, firing kilns, winding warps. For years, my parents spent all of their money on building supplies, slowly turning a hand-dug foundation into one room, a few, and then, after many years, a two-story house.
Go on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I like building houses for the same reason that I like making pots, is that you're defining face to space and form, and pots would be for use in a space, and the form is important in terms of aesthetics and function within the space you live, and a house is a form which you live in. When I did the kitchen counter, I went, okay, I didn't measure. Doug is my construction guru. This house would not be here without for Doug, or it would be in a different form.
Different form.
A different way.
It'd be a different space.
Well, I didn't even know initially that I was married to a workaholic.
I need a hammer. Inefficient.
Moving here, well, initially the focus was just on getting along. We would try to work together and he'd send me a measurement and I'd cut and it'd be like the wrong measurement. And then it would be very bad and then I would cry. And so hammering and cutting, and every penny we had went into building materials. I mean, our life was about, oh, a new window, oh, another new window, oh, a doorknob. Progress.
I'm going to build an onigami kiln, which is a Japanese style kiln. It's going to go to about here, and then I'm going to build a salt kiln on the back, and then the chimney is right here. I'm trying to create, like with the wood for the kilns down at the barn, building a new kiln. Some people would go to the beer store on Friday and buy beer. I'd go to the lumber store and buy 2x4s. When you choose to make a living as an artist and with not prospects of making necessarily a lot of money and living in a remote place, it's not, you don't think that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to do that. We lived in a tent down at the creek, right? We could go swimming every morning, and until there was a storm one night that ripped the tent apart. And then we camped inside. When we moved inside, we didn't even have a door. We like stapled blankets.
When we moved here, we were the youngsters. We were part of all the movement of people that moved out here. So, you know, we weren't alone. And everybody was building houses and learning how to garden.
My parents' days are filled with gardening, with the deer eating their lettuce, with the water moccasin that sometimes swims with them, their naked bodies tan and freckled against the blue-green waters of the creek. My mom makes dolls, tapestries, rugs, to the sound of whippoorwills. My dad makes cups and plates, spends his days with his chainsaws, handsaws, and nails, always adding on to the never-finished house. For the last 30 years, they have made art. There's been little money, little outside input. I wonder where their internal compass comes from and how it continues to overflow. Then I look outside and I remember that the land is a companion too. What is it to make art? To work alone and struggle internally, to make and make and make and lengthen your creative stride, even when society tells you not to, tells you that your money is your worth. There were times when my parents couldn't live with the uncertainty of surviving from their art.
The people here, there is a whole history of people, marginalized Scotch, Irish, English people who moved into the mountains. This would be more like redneck. When we moved in here, we were just hippies. And they were angry at the people that sold us the land. There's things like I had a sign built and had it put at the end of the road. Pottery for sale. So people could come by work. You know, that there'd be a sign there so people were passing by. And it lasted about a month. They shot holes in it. They used it for target practice.
Just like culture shock, you don't know what your culture is really like until you go to another one.
This is where I don't want to make a point. There are people who are wonderful. There were local people that helped me build my house, gave me work. I moved away for 15 years and I don't know these people anymore. And I moved away because basically we were having problems at the school and the superintendent said, you probably should move.
And a lot of people who moved out here ended up homeschooling their kids.
You can't have values about teaching and education that are contrary to the people that you're teaching. That the values of the people here are perfectly valid and there's nothing wrong with them, but they're not. We came with a middle class values about education and education being important. People here said, I didn't learn how to read, so why, and I did okay, so why do my children have to learn how to read? School is a place to park the kids.
So we didn't really mix into the local culture.
They didn't buy into the system either. So most of my friends got their college degrees, got jobs, you know, did all these things that everybody's supposed to do, got married, bought houses, you know, and to me that seemed like a trap. I mean, and they say this is a trap too, but it's my own trap. And I think a lot of this is the most important moment in my life is my father dying when I was 14. Is you just realizing how short one's life can be. And if you make choices and do things to make other people happy or to please other people rather than doing what you need to do for yourself, seems really stupid. It's easy to tell if somebody else has a story worth telling, another story, whether maybe. I'm interested in where my food comes from. I'm interested in creating and making things, working with my hands. And I want to live in a beautiful place. As a kid, boundaries didn't mean anything. I walked across people's yards. And, I mean, nobody had fences or anything. So at a certain point in my life, I wanted to live in the woods. home! Honey, I'm home! You have to be passionate enough and crazy enough about what you want to do in an existential kind of way to where you'll do without other things. I mean, if other material objects or a certain lifestyle or a certain materialistic state, if those are more important to you than the work, the creative work, then you're not going to become an artist.
Part of it is just appreciating yourself and being kind to yourself and, you know, not having unreal visions, because our society puts so many ideas of what success is.
There are dusky summer evenings when the stars and the fireflies meet, when, in the blink of an eye, you are not sure which is which.
I wanted my children to grow up to make choices of their own, not stuck with choices that were because of my choices.
None of these children live here. Mom lives in Rogers. Alice is in DC. Vidal is in Houston, I think. And Luke's in Texas and Rachel's in Chicago, so.
America is not as wealthy, than there isn't a middle class, as big a middle class. So, and things are expensive. I mean, that in relationship. You know, there's been at least 3 or 4 times where we were ready to just give it up. I think I was a fairly good teacher and I thought I made a difference, but it seems rather futile. That how many students after 20 years of teaching did I really make a difference? And did I really gave them something that they could use, gave something that enriched their life, offered them an opportunity to learn how to create. I know it's a very small number.
We actually thought we were going to change, you know, the way the world worked. That, you know, the choices we made would be the choices everybody would make. We wanted a different way of thinking about how to live so that it was more sustainable and less consumer oriented.
I vacillate. I wonder if I did any good. But this whole thing is like you live your life and, you know, when you die, who gives a shit?
And then he wanted to have an island in the middle of the pond, and he would put his tomb on the island. And in his tomb, he would put all his work that nobody had bought.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that we shared more than art or whatever is the stuff we do out here. I mean, the life we lead. Lovely. Planting trees, flowers, eating
Strawberries, raspberries.
Yeah, eating is very important in our religion.
There's a point at which time no longer stretches out in front of you, at which you begin to wonder how much you have left and if you're making good use of your life, wondering if you've written enough, will ever write something good enough to appease that deep black hole within yourself.